history. Although he has explored historical mentions of lenses and cameras, he hasn't proven that anyone in medieval times ever combined this knowledge with the complex chemical and physical techniques needed for photography. If someone had, it's puzzling why they didn't create more examples of this fascinating art form. If such works had existed, they would likely have made their creators famous. Instead, the lack of evidence suggests that photography, as people know it, was more likely developed during the early stages of the Industrial Revolution rather than in medieval times. Professor Nicholas Allen's bold theory. Professor Nicholas Allen has recently shared a new theory about the Shroud of Turin. He now believes that the shroud might be a combination of three separate exposures. According to Allen, the facial image on the shroud was created in a completely different and third exposure, separate from the rest of the image. He supports this idea by noting that he has detected spherical aberration and optical distortion in the facial image, which leads him to this conclusion. If this is true, it would make the process of creating the shroud even more complex. For a medieval photographer, this would have been extremely challenging, and even with today's advanced digital imaging technology, replicating such a perfect composite image would be very difficult. It would require a highly skilled photographic expert, making the idea that a medieval photographer could have created it seem almost unbelievable. The shroud features intricate details on both the front and back views, while Allen notes that the dorsal image has less detail because facial features and fingers are not visible from behind. It still contains significant information. The back of the shroud shows numerous scourge marks across the shoulders, back, buttocks, and legs. These marks have been carefully examined and verified by at least 3 expert forensic pathologists and anatomists, proving their authenticity. He also claimed that the shroud shows stigmata, which aligns with the religious customs of the 13th and early 14th centuries. This view, however, is strongly contested by numerous expert forensic pathologists who have meticulously analyzed the shroud. These specialists all agree that the pathology depicted on the cloth is not only highly accurate, but also remarkably realistic. For example, the detailed depiction of wounds and blood flow aligns with historical medical knowledge of the time, far surpassing what would be expected from medieval artwork. Furthermore, Allen neglects to address the forensic specifics of the bloodstains on the shroud. Studies conducted by the Shroud of Turin Research Project and other institutions reveal that these bloodstains are not covered by the image. Rather, the blood marks existed before the image appeared. Research shows that the presence of blood seems to have acted as a barrier, preventing the formation of the image in those areas. This finding supports the idea that blood stains and image formation are distinct processes. Professor Allen's theory does not resolve the critical issue of blood stains. His rationale is largely based on his acceptance of the carbon dating results, which date the shroud to the medieval period, and his dismissal of the image as a painting. Thus, he concludes that because the shroud exhibits certain photographic characteristics, such as a three-dimensional effect and detailed texture that cannot be replicated by painting, it must be a photograph. This hypothesis is interesting but remains controversial and unverified by the majority of scientific experts. The resurrection-like radiation event. The combined evidence strongly suggests that the burial cloth is indeed that of Jesus of Nazareth. Furthermore, the creation of the image on the cloth through an intense burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation hints at a resurrection event akin to those described in the Gospels. Given this compelling scientific evidence, it is crucial to conduct a new carbon dating test following standard sampling protocols. If these protocols are followed, the results are likely to align with the 4 recent dating methods, which date the shroud to around 850 AD. If this outcome is confirmed, it would significantly support the idea that the Shroud of Turin is the actual burial shroud of Jesus Christ, with indications of a resurrection event. Despite the current lack of a definitive explanation for the formation of this unique and mysterious image on the cloth, the most credible hypothesis comes from the work of two research teams. Dr. John Jackson's team proposed in 2008 that the image was formed by a burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. According to Jackson, a powerful burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation caused discoloration on the very top layer of the shroud's fibers. This didn't burn the cloth, but created a perfect three-dimensional negative image of both the front and back of the body wrapped in it. As of now, there's no known natural explanation for such a unique burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation, whether from a decomposing body or the environmental conditions inside a tomb. This mysterious occurrence hints at a possible supernatural origin of the radiation, potentially linked to Jesus' resurrection. However, scientists cannot scientifically prove this, since there's no way to test for a supernatural cause. What people can do is rule out all known natural causes for this extraordinary radiation. The exceptional and currently unexplainable nature of this event suggests that it could be evidence of Jesus' resurrection. This belief grows stronger as people gain a better understanding of the light event that appears to have created the image, and as people continue to dismiss natural causes. Jackson's hypothesis is particularly compelling, suggesting that the radiation occurred sometime after the bloodstains had dried on the shroud. The decomposing body wrapped in the Shroud of Turin emitted a brief but powerful burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. This intense flash caused the shroud's front and back parts to become dehydrated and discolored, resulting in a perfect photographic negative image. Jackson's research suggests that the body within the shroud became see-through and emitted light uniformly from every point in three-dimensional space. This phenomenon allowed the shroud's front part to collapse, creating images of both the inner and outer parts of the hands and forming a double image on the front of the shroud. Currently, the laws of physics cannot explain how a decomposing body could emit such a strong burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation. Moreover, they cannot clarify how the body could become mechanically transparent and radiate light from every point within it. What does this mean for our understanding of the shroud? If Jackson's theory remains the sole explanation for the intriguing mysteries surrounding the Shroud of Turin, and if future developments in the laws of physics fail to clarify how a decomposing body could become mechanically transparent and emit vacuum ultraviolet radiation uniformly from every point within it, we may need to explore a more unconventional explanation, one that ventures into the realms of transphysical or metaphysical causes. The Shroud of Turin, a linen cloth that bears the faint image of a man, has fascinated scientists and theologians for decades. Despite numerous analyses, including carbon dating and forensic studies, the exact origin of the image remains unresolved. Jackson's theory suggests that the image could result from an intense burst of light, potentially linked to a transphysical phenomenon. This concept implies that a non-physical force or entity might have interacted with the body, creating a dramatic visual imprint on the shroud. In scientific terms, such an explanation is challenging because science is limited to studying physical events and cannot conclusively prove the existence of transphysical causes. However, if the conditions described by Jackson hold, it is reasonable to consider the possibility of a transphysical event. This doesn't mean people can definitively prove such a cause, but it opens the door to a broader range of interpretations. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In a hidden chamber beneath the Vatican, a team of scientists made an extraordinary discovery that would soon send shockwaves through the world. For decades, the Shroud of Turin, a centuries-old linen cloth believed to bear the image of Jesus Christ, had been the subject of intense debate and speculation. Some claimed it was a medieval forgery, while others held it as an irrefutable relic of faith. But then, in an unprecedented twist, researchers unearthed a collection of previously unknown documents and artifacts stored away in a dusty corner of the archives. Among these was a parchment, eerily preserved, detailing a mysterious experiment conducted in the 13th century. The parchment described how a secret group of medieval